you'll see that everyone bows and curtsies to the king when Camilla passes. And that was because they were angry with Camilla. All the people get the crown on her head were excluded from that coronation.
Camilla entered Kensington Palace expecting ceremony, courtesy, and the familiar recognition that followed Britain's queen through every royal doorway. Instead, she found silence. Her official nameplate had disappeared. The household register no longer carried her royal title. Even the briefing folder waiting on the polished table referred to her without the two words she believed were permanently hers. In a single morning, the queen had arrived at a palace that no longer acknowledged her as queen. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla slowed inside the entrance hall. A scheduled discussion about royal patronages and upcoming state engagements should have brought senior officials. Royal patronages are charities, while state engagements are formal duties carried out for the crown. Yet only a nervous deputy secretary waited beside the inner doors, holding a folder as though it contained something dangerous. The queen studied his face. He explained that the sealed palace directive had removed Queen Camilla from every active Kensington record. A palace directive is an internal order used to change procedure across a royal household. The command covered directories, ceremonial schedules, seating plans, briefing papers, databases, and official correspondence. This was not a misplaced label. It was complete administrative erasure. Camilla opened the folder and turned 3 pages. William appeared with his full title. Catherine appeared with hers. Her own entry carried one name, Camilla. She pressed her thumb against the paper until it bent, then forced it flat again. No one dared speak. "Is this a clerical error?" she asked. The deputy secretary lowered his eyes. Camilla placed the folder on the table and said mistakes could be corrected. His answer came quietly, but it struck harder than a public accusation. The change was intentional. The monarch moved toward the household register. A household register is the internal list identifying royal roles, titles, and lines of authority. A fresh page had replaced the old one. The Prince and Princess of Wales remained firmly inside the succession structure, but her title had vanished from every line connected to Kensington. Camilla turned back, anger breaking through her control. The official admitted the order had arrived before dawn, inside a sealed red dispatch case, a secure container used for highly sensitive royal documents. It carried approval from the highest level of the household. Was this Charles's decision, or William's? The deputy secretary looked toward the closed council room door. Someone was already waiting behind it. Camilla had arrived expecting a routine royal meeting, but beyond that door waited the family members whose private fears had turned her public identity into a weapon. The missing title was not merely a line deleted from palace stationery. For Camilla, it represented decades of endurance, scandal, survival, and eventual acceptance. For Charles, it was bound to promises he had spent years defending. For William, it had become part of a larger struggle over the monarchy's future. 3 people now stood around the same royal identity, and each believed surrendering it would mean betraying something they could never recover. Camilla understood what those 2 missing words meant. The title of queen, a formal style marking the sovereign's wife and public partner, had become proof that the institution which once resisted her had finally accepted her beside Charles. She had survived public fury, shame, and years of distance. Losing that recognition inside Kensington felt like being dragged backward into the life she thought she had escaped. William saw the matter differently. The prince believed royal titles were not personal rewards but constitutional symbols, signs of who carried authority and protected the succession. The succession meant the legal order through which the crown passes from one monarch to the next. Every title carried limits. Every command had consequences. Each boundary threatened the household his children would inherit. Charles sat alone in a drawing room, reading a duplicate of the removal order. The king reached the line carrying his approval mark, paused, and closed the file without speaking. That mark proved the decision had not been forced upon him. He had authorized it knowing it would wound the woman he had defended for decades. William waited nearby, choosing his words when Camilla entered. He loved his father, but loyalty no longer meant silence. Catherine and the children stood central to his fear. The future king believed the queen consort had repeatedly pushed beyond her role, pressing into ceremonial choices and family decisions belonging to the Wales household. Catherine had not signed the directive. Her private office, the small team managing her duties and correspondence, had supplied a documented account of disputed ceremonies, unauthorized instructions, and attempts by Camilla's staff to override Kensington protocol. The princess read every page before it was sent. She knew the evidence might fracture the family, yet silence could leave her children exposed. Camilla learned the discussions continued for weeks without her. Senior aides had prepared revised registers before Charles gave final consent. As she approached the council room door, William's voice carried through the wood. "Once she sees the register, there will be no pretending this can be reversed." Charles answered quietly, "Then you will explain why it had to happen." But the explanation began weeks earlier, with one ceremony and one choice that turned private unease into an irreversible royal crisis. Every palace rupture has a moment that appears insignificant, until history looks back and names it as the beginning. For this crisis, that moment came during a private rehearsal for the Crown's annual Commonwealth reception. There were no cheering crowds and no cameras, only a seating plan, a disputed procession, and one instruction spoken too firmly. Yet what Camilla demanded that afternoon convinced William that the Queen's title was being used not to serve the monarchy, but to control it. 3 weeks earlier, royals gathered at Buckingham Palace to rehearse the order of entry for the Commonwealth reception. The event brought diplomats, military leaders, and representatives of royal charities together beneath the crown. A procession was the formal order in which family members entered, and that order mattered, because placement signaled rank, trust, and the future shape of the monarchy. Charles and Camilla were scheduled to enter first. William and Catherine would follow. George was meant to appear later for a brief introduction to a royal occasion, allowing the young prince to learn without carrying the full pressure of public duty. The plan protected him while preparing him for the life waiting ahead. Camilla changed everything with one command. She told the Master of Ceremonies to remove George from the principal family sequence and place one of her own representatives in his position. The Queen argued that the boy's presence distracted attention from the sovereign couple. Her words were calm, but the meaning struck William like a warning. William stepped forward before anyone responded. The prince said that decisions involving his son must come through him and Catherine. Camilla answered that, as Queen, she held authority over the dignity and shape of the event. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Charles watched the exchange and remained silent. The king's hesitation wounded William more deeply than the original demand. To the future monarch, that silence suggested his father might protect his marriage even when the succession itself was being challenged. Catherine's office uncovered the breach later that evening. Her staff found a revised procession document circulated by Camilla's team. Across the top appeared the words, "By order of the Queen," even though Charles had approved nothing. The document was not a proposal. It was written as a command. William carried the paper to his father and placed it before him. "The title has become a second source of authority," he said. Charles read the page twice, then requested a confidential review of every instruction issued in Camilla's name. That review produced more than a warning. It created the order now lying between Camilla, Charles, and William, as the council room doors finally opened. The council room door shut behind Camilla with a soft click, but the sound carried the finality of a verdict. Charles stood near the window, unable to meet her eyes. William remained beside the table, one hand resting on the sealed directive. There were no aides, no secretaries, and no ceremonial language to soften what followed. For the first time, the Queen faced the two men who had removed her title, and neither was willing to call the decision a mistake. Camilla looked from her husband to his son, and understood why the room had been cleared. This was not an administrative meeting. It was a family confrontation. A sealed directive was a formal order carrying royal authority, and the document beneath William's hand now controlled how Kensington Palace would recognize her. William spoke first. The prince explained that the removal applied only to Kensington's active household records, not to history books, ceremonies, or her place beside Charles beyond those walls. Inside the residence under his authority, however, she could no longer issue commands through the title of Queen. The boundary mattered because his household protected Catherine, George, and the future line of succession. Camilla pulled out a chair but refused to sit. She stared directly at Charles and asked whether he had signed the order. The king answered with one word, "Yes." Her fingers closed around the chairback before she pushed it away. She accused him of standing aside while his son humiliated the wife he had once promised to defend. Charles met her gaze. He said the decision became unavoidable after she interfered with George's place at the Commonwealth reception. The monarch insisted that the boy's preparation belonged to his parents. Camilla answered that she had protected the dignity of the crown, not threatened a child. William opened the file. He produced the unauthorized procession plan, then placed 2 further instructions beside it. One attempted to change Catherine's speaking position. The other requested access to George's private briefing schedule, the confidential plan used to prepare him for major duties. Camilla claimed her staff had followed accepted precedent. The future king did not flinch. During a documented internal interview, one senior aide had admitted that she gave the instructions herself in a private meeting and ordered them circulated without Charles's approval. Camilla turned on her husband. She demanded that he revoke the directive immediately. Charles removed his glasses and set them beside the file. "I cannot undo what I authorized to protect the crown." His words ended the argument, but not the war. Behind that decision stood a deeper calculation, one that forced the king to choose between his wife's dignity and the survival of his reign. The order stripping Camilla's title from Kensington's records appeared to carry the force of a single signature. In reality, it emerged from a web of constitutional caution, family pressure, and private fear. Charles had not awakened one morning, determined to diminish his wife. He had been cornered by evidence that 2 royal households were beginning to issue competing commands. And when the monarchy was forced to decide which authority would shape its future, sentiment became a luxury the king could no longer afford. Charles opened the confidential review long after the palace had fallen quiet. A confidential review is a restricted internal investigation used to examine conduct, authority, and risk without public disclosure. Its conclusion was severe. Camilla's office had begun treating her title as an independent source of command, leaving staff unsure whether Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace held the final word. William's household carried responsibilities that reached far beyond schedules. The prince's team prepared Catherine, George, Charlotte, and Louis for the duties expected of the next generation of working royals. Any attempt to direct them without parental approval threatened both family trust and the clear chain of authority surrounding the succession. Charles reached the recommendation restricting Camilla's title within Kensington and stopped reading. The king removed his signet ring, a personal seal traditionally linked to royal identity and approval, and placed it on the desk. He stared at the empty mark on his hand, knowing his next decision would wound the woman he had defended for decades. Anne spoke to her brother in a private recorded consultation prepared for the review. The Princess Royal told him intention was no longer the central issue. Camilla might believe she was protecting dignity, but staff had begun acting as though her wishes could override William's lawful household authority. That confusion, she warned, could fracture the monarchy from within. Catherine asked for no punishment. During a private meeting, the princess told Charles that George, Charlotte, and Louis could not become pieces in an adult struggle for status. Her words remained calm, yet they struck the monarch harder than anger. The dispute had moved beyond ceremony. It had entered the lives of children. Charles signed the directive. The king added one condition. Camilla would be told face to face, and William would accept responsibility for enforcing the order. No aide would carry the burden for them. William understood what that condition meant. The future king could no longer hide behind procedure. He would have to face Camilla and defend the boundary himself. The signature settled the question of authority, but when Camilla left that room, the consequences escaped the sealed file and began reshaping every part of her royal life. The most painful consequences did not arrive through a grand announcement. They appeared in small, merciless details. A secretary stopped before saying, "Your Majesty." A place card was quietly replaced. A door once opened automatically now required permission. Camilla had not been removed from the royal family, yet inside Kensington she felt herself becoming invisible in real time. The title still existed beyond the palace walls, but within those rooms, it had ceased to protect her. Camilla stepped back into the entrance hall, carrying the weight of Charles's refusal. Behind her, the council room door remained closed. Ahead, Kensington staff had already received a revised protocol notice, an internal instruction explaining how a royal household must behave. She would be treated courteously as the king's wife, but she could no longer issue orders, change schedules, or approve ceremonies within William's residence. The Queen Consort learned that her office had also been removed from the internal command chain. That chain was the route through which instructions passed from senior royals to staff. Every request from her team now had to go through the prince's private secretary, who could approve, delay, or reject it as though she were merely a visiting relative. Camilla reached the lunch table and stopped. A brass place marker carried only one word: Camilla. She lifted it carefully, studied the empty space where her title should have stood, then placed it face down. The gesture was small, but everyone nearby understood its meaning. A longtime courtier approached and began, "Your Maj." He caught himself, swallowed, and changed the greeting. Camilla heard the hesitation. She walked past without answering, because anger was easier to carry than the tears gathering behind it. The humiliation deepened when a secretary quietly confirmed that the new protocol had already reached the communications office, security desk, ceremonial department, and archival team. The archival team maintained the palace's official records for future reference. This removal had been designed to spread through the entire system. It was not symbolic, it was complete. William's final decision remained unsettled. The future king had reserved the right to decide whether Camilla would stand beside Charles at the forthcoming Kensington reception. Her place would depend on whether she accepted the directive or continued to challenge it. Camilla entered her vehicle but refused to leave. She wrote Charles a message by hand, asking him to meet her alone that evening, without William, advisors, or palace papers between them. For once, she wanted an answer spoken from love, not written through authority. By nightfall, the dispute would no longer be about protocol. It would become a conversation between husband and wife, over what the crown had taken from them both. That evening, Charles entered a private Kensington sitting room, without a red box, a secretary, or the protection of official duty. Camilla was waiting beside an unlit fireplace, still holding the place card she had turned face down hours earlier. For years, they had survived scandal by standing together against the world. Now the threat came from inside the crown itself, and for the first time, Charles had to tell her that loving her did not mean restoring what he had taken away. Charles closed the door and left every advisor outside. The king had agreed to meet Camilla alone, forcing them to speak only as husband and wife. A red box was the secure case used to carry royal papers, but none stood there. Only the place card remained. Camilla placed it on the table. She asked whether the restriction was temporary. Charles answered that it would remain inside Kensington until William believed trust had been rebuilt and the competing lines of authority had disappeared. The monarch did not soften the truth. His son would decide when the boundary had become safe again. Camilla touched the card. She said she had spent years hearing that she would never belong, then fought until the institution accepted her. Now the palace had reduced her to an intruder again. The queen did not raise her voice, but Charles heard the hurt beneath every word. Charles admitted that signing the order felt like betrayal. The king had defended her through years of anger, yet he could not allow George to become part of a struggle over rank. The monarchy, he said, had to protect the child who would one day inherit it, even when that protection wounded the adults around him. Camilla confessed what ceremony and protocol had hidden. She ordered the procession change because she feared becoming irrelevant, as attention shifted toward William, Catherine, and their children. The queen consort had called it dignity, but fear had driven her. She had mistaken control for security. Charles then revealed the compromise William had offered in a private exchange. The prince would restore formal courtesies at Kensington only if Camilla signed an acknowledgement confirming that she held no authority over the Wales household or the children's royal preparation. An acknowledgement was a written acceptance of limits that could be enforced. Camilla looked at the unsigned page. Silence stretched between them. She took the pen, then paused. "I will sign," she said, "but the public statement must not turn this family into enemies." Her decision changed the crisis, yet the palace could not contain the story forever. By morning, the erased title had become the only subject Britain wanted to discuss. At sunrise, the private rupture became a national spectacle. Palace correspondents gathered outside Kensington. Broadcasters repeated the same astonishing phrase. The Queen's title had vanished from the palace's active records. Supporters called it an act of cruelty. Critics called it a necessary defense of the succession. But one image captured the entire crisis more powerfully than any debate. A printed royal directory showing every senior title in full, except the one name left standing alone. Kensington Palace released a careful statement that morning. It confirmed that the household had revised its internal command structure to protect the independence of William and Catherine's team. A command structure was the clear chain showing who could issue instructions, approve plans, and direct staff. That distinction mattered because conflicting orders had already threatened family trust and the future monarchy. Camilla had not lost her national position. The statement stressed that the restriction applied only to Kensington's records, authority, and ceremonial planning. The Queen remained Charles's wife and partner beyond those walls. Yet inside the prince's household, her title no longer carried operational power. Charles watched the first television reports from his private office. The king remained still as one broadcaster described the order as a public rejection of his wife. He reached for the remote, switched off the screen, and sat in silence. The decision had protected the succession, but it had also exposed his marriage to national judgment. William faced a different storm. Commentators accused the prince of humiliating Camilla to strengthen his position. Catherine stood beside him during a morning briefing and reminded him why they had acted. Protecting George, Charlotte, and Louis, she said, was worth the anger. The future king heard her, but he understood that every defense of his children now looked like an attack on his father's reign. The London Chronicle captured the crisis with brutal force. Its front page carried a full-width image of the revised royal directory beneath the headline, "The Queen Who Disappeared." Crowds gathered outside Kensington's gates, holding newspapers and pointing toward the palace windows. That single image turned an internal restriction into a public symbol. A broadcaster then called the decision the first visible transfer of internal authority from Charles's reign to William's future monarchy. The erased title no longer represented only a family quarrel. It marked a generational shift. Shortly before the reception, Camilla sent William the signed acknowledgement. Beneath her signature, she had written one sentence by hand: "The crown must never make enemies of its own family again." With the public watching, and the acknowledgement signed, only one question remained. Not whether her title would return, but what she would become after accepting that it would not. The final verdict came not through another sealed order, but through Camilla's decision to return. Days after walking out of Kensington wounded and furious, she entered the palace again for the scheduled reception. Her name appeared without the title she had fought to keep. William waited inside. Charles stood between the old reign and the next. Yet this time, Camilla did not demand that the record be changed. She walked forward knowing that dignity could survive, even when status did not. Camilla had already signed the acknowledgement confirming that she held no command authority over Kensington Palace, the Wales household, or the royal preparation of George, Charlotte, and Louis. An acknowledgement was a written acceptance of limits that could be enforced. Her signature ended the dispute over who could direct the future royal family. The title remained absent from every active Kensington record. The decision was permanent within the palace's administrative and ceremonial structure, meaning its internal system of authority and formal events. No revised register waited for her. No quiet correction restored what had vanished. Camilla reached her place at the reception. An attendant presented a card bearing only her name. She studied it for a moment, then placed it upright instead of turning it face down. The queen consort sat beside Charles, accepting the wound without allowing it to define her. William approached before the guests entered. The prince thanked her for signing. Camilla told him he had been right to defend his children, but wrong to let the decision reach her without warning. The future king accepted the criticism without argument. For once, neither of them tried to win. Charles watched the exchange and understood what had changed. The king still wore the crown, but his son now held unmistakable authority over the household that would shape the monarchy's next chapter. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone in the room knew it. Camilla understood something deeper. Her title had become tied to her fear of being displaced. By surrendering its power inside Kensington, she lost control, but recovered honesty. The stripped records did not erase her marriage, service, or history. They revealed a harder truth. No title could outrank the future of the crown. Charles chose stability over protection. William chose his children over family peace. Camilla chose acceptance over a battle she could not win. She arrived believing Queen proved she belonged. She left knowing belonging could not be commanded by rank. The monarchy moved forward, steadier under boundaries that could no longer be ignored now. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.